You know, a person said to me, "Dear Pope, dear leader, you must stay in touch with the flock as a shepherd, because when the shepherd is absent, the sheep will scatter. And therefore, I hope you don't mind if I come to you with a series of messages to remind you about the urgency and the hour of the moment." I believe the Negro leader, Martin Luther King Jr., he spoke about the urgency of now and the fact of the hour and to act. I know that many people, some of whom I know and some of whom I don't know, they believe that I am an insane and crazy individual. Need I remind many of you that when Christ Jesus walked upon the earth, he too was considered a crazy person. He was called the King of the Jews. The Romans said he was fighting, and as I've been watching these old movies, historical movies about the Arabs, the Turks, the Ottomans, and Mehmed, who captured finally Constantinople for the Muslims and changed the name of Constantinople to Istanbul, and it is Istanbul today, which is at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. And throughout history, what we see are the conflicts and the wars, and these wars were waged on the basis of religion. And there was always a fight. Whoever had the strongest empire captured and controlled Jerusalem. Once upon a time, the Persians were in control of Jerusalem. And under Darius, they allowed the Jewish people to resettle in Jerusalem and in Palestine and to have a homeland. And once again another conqueror would come and the Jewish people would be exiled again. And they would get into Europe, wherever they were. And in the 19th century, Theodor Herzl convened the Zionist Conference and put together the ideology of Zionism, and it probably existed before that. And he coined the term "next year in Jerusalem." And they began this unique and unusual form of colonialism to go and to colonize Palestine. And in those days, while the Ottomans, the empire that lasted for several thousand years, was destroyed in the First World War, when the European powers conspired to destroy the Ottoman Empire, to gain control of North Africa, and to gain control of the Middle East and of the oil reserves in the Middle East. Many of us do not know these things. Our history of conflicts and the history of the world starts with what we saw in the news yesterday. We say Russia is attacking Ukraine, but we do not know the history of Ukraine, the history of Russia, and the history of the relationship between Russia and the West, and why there has always been conflict. And today, as I speak to you, I want you to understand, and I told you at the beginning of 2023, that this year is going to be a year of conflict, a year of war. And as I sent you my recent video, it's a video about Japan. And Japan used to be a great and powerful militaristic state. And the natural enemies of the Japanese are the Chinese. And the Japanese are the natural enemies of the Chinese and of the Koreans. And what happened? They had a great war. And a great war is coming again. That war is going to be between China and the United States and the United States is ill prepared. The Chinese have been motivated. What they say, they have been humiliated in history, and they're coming for revenge. Then if you look at the Chinese and the Chinese history, and you look at Chairman Mao, they called him crazy too. He had a program called the Great Leap Forward. Many people died. He was trying to catch up with the West in terms of industrialization and economic progress. Then he had the Cultural Revolution to reassert his power and to show that he's the great helmsman and he's in charge, he's the supreme leader of China. When Mao started, they said he was crazy. Mao was fighting against the Chinese nationalist Chiang Kai-shek, and Chiang Kai-shek was backed by the Europeans and the United States, and Mao was backed by the Soviet Union. I always didn't understand what the Great March was all about, but Mao came close to defeat, and he had to have, it's called a Long March, and on that Long March he had to retreat to an area of China that was difficult to get to so that he could continue his liberation struggle and to unite China. And Mao started that journey with 100,000 soldiers. Went through very difficult territory, through swamps, through mountains, through difficult weather. And a man like Mao has to have some godliness in him if he survived such a retreat, which he did. And by the time he got there, I think he had 30,000 troops left. And he would have to reorganize, and the Soviets wanted to teach him how to fight. They want to fight trench warfare and this, and Mao said no. Mao fired the Soviets, and he reverted to the Maoist tactics of guerrilla war. And he began another great march, and that was the march that led to the conquest of China and the defeat of Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists who took refuge on the island of Formosa. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because the world is a very evil place, and man to man and woman to man are very unjust, and anything can happen at any time. Right here in the United States of America and in Texas, if you can believe that the governor of Texas and the Texas legislature are about to enact legislation to make it illegal for Chinese people and Chinese descendants, Iranians and Iranian descendants, maybe Koreans too, North Korean descendants, I don't know how many are here. And many of these people who are here in the United States are very conservative people, supporters of the Republican Party, people who do not show any homage or respect to African descendants who made it possible for them to be accepted in this society and to be able to get visas and to be able to get citizenship. And the Texas legislature is boldly saying we're going to pass a law. Oh, Iranians, they don't want Iranians to own property either in Texas. So even if you're not affiliated with the Mullah regime, but you happen to be from Iran and you're here in Texas, they don't want you to own a home, to own a house, or to buy land. And this is happening in the 21st century, in 2023. And many of these people vote Republican, and we have a Republican governor who is Greg Abbott. So then you come to the issue of the Negro problem. The Negro problem has never been resolved. And even President Trump himself has talked about bringing back slavery. And that has always been my concern since I was a child. I always wonder, from the little island nation state where I came from, and as you know, in honor of our ancestors, we always have to have a little sip, and it's almost bedtime, so I'll have a little sip. And as I have proclaimed to you, once upon our time, our people were caught up on the Hispaniola island in the nation state of Haiti. They had no allies. They had no friends in Washington, no friends in Europe. But they single-handedly rose up and defeated the French Empire and Napoleon and gained their independence. They didn't have guns. They didn't have bullets. All they had was the knowledge and their great and mighty leader, Vincent Macandal. So what am I saying? Our people are seen as second and third class citizens, not just here in the United States, but by many people in the world. They do not fear us. They despise us. And what have we done? Nothing. Except that we were created and we are the inheritors of one of the most richest continent on the world. And we're brought here. And I always said that slavery was a price worth paying. Look what we have inherited. The United States of America, the chain of Caribbean islands, and very large parts of South America, particularly in Brazil and in Colombia. I say all this to say, we must not take anything for granted. We must not take when your father is killed. You see, and that's the other thing too. Right here in the United States, every day we're having an act of terrorism. If a person invades your home, it's a terrorist act. If a man rapes a woman, it's an act of terrorism. If a person goes into a school and shoots a bunch of children, it's an act of terrorism. If a person goes to a grocery store and they shoot a bunch of people, whether they're black, white, yellow, or Hispanic, it's terrorism. But here in the United States and in the media, there's a conspiracy. The first thing they ask, was the perpetrator of Arab or Islamic descent? And if it is, they try to portray it as terrorism. And if it was carried out by a European, they refer to that person as a man. If it's an African man, they say a black man. But anytime you hear the media say a man, you know it's a white person. And they have never labeled it terrorism. They call it mass shooting. But anyway, let me get to the end of the message. The message I come to tell you today, on behalf of the Macandalis, on behalf of those who are fighting to protect us, on behalf of protecting your family and protecting your tribe, it is in the time of peace that you must prepare for war. In the time of peace. I want you to know that the same way these nations spend on defense, you too must invest in the defense of your person and of yourself and of your family. In this great United States of America, we have what's called the Second Amendment, our right to organize and to bear arms and to form a militia to help to protect the government, to protect the state, and to protect freedom. My advice to you, wherever you are, whatever hamlet, whatever city you're in, take advantage of those rights, because if you don't use your rights, you're going to lose it. If you don't exercise your right to vote, you're going to lose it. And in the time of peace, you must prepare for war. And so what I wanted to share with you tonight, as I get ready to say good night or good morning, wherever you are, maybe you're up early morning. It's Juve today. People are out partying in Brazil, in Dominica, in Trinidad, wherever. Kind of a... And so, I just want to tell you, we the Macandal people, we are in fact, we practice what we preach. We believe more than anything else that the pen is mightier than the sword. And we choose to fight with our words, written, spoken, and by the video. But at the same time, we know that our foes and our enemies are evil, and if given the chance, they will slaughter us. And there was a time when we were slaughtered and we did not have the means to protect ourselves or to fight back. As your leader, and as the leader of the movement, Saddam Hussein used to have a gun made out of gold, but he didn't know that gold is very easy for gold to melt. This is the gift that was given to your leader. As you can see, earlier I showed you a very reliable primitive Chinese weapon. This is the US weapon. Okay, and as you can see, it's very stylish, very efficient. I have taken the liberty of removing the clip. So I want to say to you, in no uncertain terms, wherever you are, do not believe for 1 minute the French or the British cannot come and recolonize you and enslave you. And the only way you can resist is to remember the examples of Macandal, of Jaco, and of Tusa. And with that said, the essence of the message now: prepare for war in the time of peace. And though the pen is mightier than the sword, there always comes a time when all else fails, that you have to resort to the sword, and we pray that day never comes. God bless you, and I bless you, and I look forward to seeing you soon when we'll talk more about preparing for our defense.